allegiance? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda is public participation.
Sue McNamara, 605 Eagle Road. Is that Wayne? My husband and I have recently gone through the process of getting a grading permit. It has been a very difficult, expensive, and emotionally trying event. Between the survey, the pit costs, the rain garden design and implementation, we spent over $6,000 to comply with the township requirements. I want to emphasize the $6,000 because that's a lot of money. We are putting in an 1,100 square foot patio, which is under 21% impervious on our lot. According to the township, our only stormwater management protocol was a pit. We dug 2 pits, the only places the engineer indicated that were appropriate, and they both failed the perk test. When our contractor went to the township manager or whoever he spoke with said, dig 2 or 3 more pits throughout the yard, which had nothing to do with the construction area and seemed pointless given the soil. We said no because we knew the pits would fail and it would cost us $2,500. We then got Jim Higgins involved, our commissioner, who then got Mr. Norsini involved. Only then was a rain garden provided as an option. Not sure why this was never an option to begin with. If not for us elevating this, where would we be now? I can assure you we would not have a permit as of right now. Now this started all in August. I think that should also be noted. We were required to get an engineer-designed and stamped rain garden, which Mr. Sator, who I guess is the gentleman at the township, found problems with and had our engineer redesigned. Now, again, let's not forget this is costing us significant dollars. The rain garden itself was $3,000. Not sure we had to get an engineer-designed rain garden when our landscape designer could have done this for a fraction of the cost, and Mr. Sartor felt the plan needed to be redesigned, that the engineer designed the plan. So again, not quite sure why we went through that exercise. It also made us wonder why it took Mr. Sator 3 weeks to do the review when he could have called the engineer, whom he knows, when the issues were small and insignificant in the design plan. He knew he was making the process longer and we would have to resubmit, which would add to his workload. I can only assume that he got paid based on this readjustment. Sorry, can I get my paper here? Our engineer did the minor revisions in about an hour. We sent it back and set it up again. It took weeks to have this done. We once again elevated the plan to Mr. Higgins, we finally got the permit. I guess when we walked through this whole process, what was frustrating to us is we interviewed 3 contractors, landscape contractors. 2 out of the 3 said that they'd be happy to squinch the design, our 1,100 square foot design, landscape plan, down to 500. Reason for this? So we wouldn't have to go through the permit process. Now, we've kind of been asked to come here tonight because, in our opinion, the township is inconsistent and selective with the enforcement and communication of the code, which causes confusion and makes the process just frankly awful. The township made the process slow. If we hadn't forced the issue, there is no way we would have a permit today. It was a waste of Jim Higgins, Steve Norsini's, and our time. Township has a serious image problem, and I really want to, as a homeowner, it is appalling to me that this process would cost us $6,000, and we're willing to comply. We were fully on board with whatever they asked us to do, but it was a lot of money. And if this whole patio was costing us $10,000 and it cost us $6,000 to comply with what you guys asked us to do, that is absurd. The timeline, absurd. The fact that I had to get my commissioner involved, Mr. Norsini, who has better things to do than deal with the McNamara's patio, it was ridiculous. So all I'd ask is that you guys really take time, and I don't really know if us coming here tonight is going to have any impact, but it's got to be a better way to do this. There's just has to be. I mean, we're doing what we can, but it's expensive, and it's cumbersome, and it's time-consuming, and when most of the contractors are telling us, we'll squinch it, we'll squinch that design, that's just not right. That's all I have to say.
Excuse me, ma'am, if you can. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Who asked you to come here tonight?
I
Oh, you did? Okay, because this is the first I've heard about it. And as the township manager, I guess I would have appreciated knowing ahead of time. However, just to explain to you, when you said perfectly is there are contractors who are willing to bend the law or work around it. And in my time of being here 2.5 years, we found more and more things that have been done wrong in the township. So we're trying to put a process in place. With Kevin Kachansky and his department of engineering, we're starting to change those types of things. So I guess in the first place is I apologize that I've never heard about this before. And to make an issue to make you come up here, I hate to see your time being wasted because as manager, as my responsibility, I would have appreciated knowing this and we could have worked through this. Because I know you mentioned that somehow the township manager made you dig holes or something. That's outside of my realm. I don't do that.
No, it was whoever the whoever you get that
right.
through. I'm not sure who.
But I just want to apologize to you for having to do that because really you shouldn't have to come here and make your case. I would have been more than happy to hear this as the process went along.
You know what, and I appreciate that. And I wish we, again, if it were clear, if the regulation had been clear, when we went and we read the township regulation, we thought we were well within our rights. We were under 1,500 square feet and we impervious and all that other jazz. It was the cumbersomeness of the process that was so utterly frustrating to us. And the fact that we have to get Mr. Higgins and Mr. Norsini involved, ridiculous.
Right.
Numerous
Right.
times.
And it's
Bob,
unfortunate that that's the
Yeah,
case.
Bob,
that
I apologize that you were not told ahead of time that she was coming. However, I do believe you were copied on at least some of the late emails when things got to the boiling point with the amount of time and money that the McNamara's were spending. And I thought it was appropriate for her to come tonight to bring to your attention and the staff's attention the problems she had. And maybe we can learn from this and improve it because I have a feeling that she is not an exception, but we have many homeowners who do things in the township without getting a grading permit, without going the extra mile to comply with our laws. They either don't know about our laws or they know about them and they scoff at them. So in this case, I don't know if there would have been any solution to helping the McNamara's, Steve, early in telling them that they should directly go and explore a rain garden as opposed to digging the 2 pits, which proved fruitless because the percolation tests failed, or if they would just have had the obligation to go through the pits and then end up where they did end up.
Jim, we the homeowners, we knew the perk test was going to fail. No one bothered to ask us. We know the soil that we have on our land. We're sloped. We have hard compacted clay. I know where the water goes on my property. No one bothered to ask me or ask my input. It was, you must dig a pit. That was the only option we were given.
Repeatedly.
Must dig a pit. So we dug a pit. It failed. Must dig a pit. We dug a second pit. It failed. Must dig 2 or 3 more pits. And that's when we said, this is crazy. There has to be an option. We did what you asked us to do. We're not digging pits all over our yard. I'm not a geologist, but if I have hard compacted clay here, I'm going to have clay here.
Steve, can you help shed some light on this?
And I can, and I think Mr. Sartor can. Getting back to what the manager said, in the past couple of years here, we're trying to standardize the use of our regulations in permitting. And in the past, I can't speak to certain processes that we're going through. And I'm not going to speak for Mr. Sartor. I'll let him jump in at one point. But there is, in obtaining a grading permit, there are specific criteria that have to be met. And I fully understand that you could have told us anecdotally that your yard wouldn't perk, but the process has to be going through. And I'll tell you why. It's not that we would not trust you nice folks. That's not the case. But there are other people that would, in some cases, a rain garden is a less expensive option for stormwater management, in some cases. So other folks might say, well, our yard won't perk, let's go right to a rain garden, when really what we want to do is that groundwater infiltration. That's the crux of the ordinance.
So, but tell people that then, because when we got to that point, we said, we were told we must dig a pit, but we can't dig a pit. What are we supposed to do? We went back and we begged. What are we supposed to do? What's our next step? And it was just crickets. There was no instruction. If we had been told, you must try to dig a pit, and in the code, this is the line where it says, you shall do that. It doesn't say that.
I'll let Mr. Sartor.
Because we had people read the code. We had our landscaper read the code, and she said, it doesn't say that.
Mr. and Mrs. McNamara and Board of Commissioners and Bob, I just wanted to assure you that there was a review that was done of this grading application in accordance with the township's procedures. As Steve Norsini said, you know, we are trying, and as Bob said, we're trying to implement procedures here that basically correct the sins of the past, and I believe that those procedures are working. I certainly feel for what you folks have gone through, I would like to
Please don't interrupt him. Let him finish, okay?
What I did want to let you know that was when I received the original plan, it really was a sketch. It was a hand-drawn sketch that showed where a rain garden could be, or where a seepage pit could be located. I then had a conversation with your engineer, Tom Smith, who I've known for many, many years. Tom and I have worked well together in other localities, and we talked about what some options might be. And he expressed his frustration that, you know, we have a situation here where the soils won't perk, yet we're obligated to meet the ordinance requirements. You know, what do we do? And so we talked about the possibility of installing a rain garden as an option, at least something that would meet the intent of the ordinance. And so it really was, it was during that dialogue, and I wasn't the one, this was before I came on board, I wasn't the individual, I don't know who it was at the township that told you to dig a series of additional pits. But it was the dialogue that I had with Mr. Smith that resulted in him then going ahead with the design of the rain garden. We did have, you know, some questions on his original design. It did go back and forth. There was an issue with the application form itself. The numbers on the application form did not match the numbers that were reflected on the plan, and so we had to get them consistent. Right. And really, that's why it took as long as it did.
So let me ask you a question. How many plans are submitted that are perfect? Is it normal that there's some sort of notes that are...
None.
So then you're saying it's normal that it should take 8 weeks for this process to go back and forth? If you're saying this process is supposed to fix the sins of the past, it's not working, because my neighbors aren't going to go. Yeah. The next people are going to dig a patio. They're not going to do a permit, because I'm going to tell them the story, and I'm going to say, why would you go through what we had to go through?
And $6,000.
We appreciate your input. It's very constructive. The manager will work with the engineer, and
I would be shocked if anything happens as a result of this.
It'll help. Well, don't be shocked. Hopefully it'll help other people in the future.
I challenge you to do anything about this.
Thank you.
I'll just, my opinion, what's most meaningful about what you're saying is we have to be careful about regulations that sound great to pass but have great complexity.
To the homeowners.
I mean, I think I followed the discussion, and what I heard from both our engineer and our consultant is that they were following our ordinance. It's my understanding of our ordinance. So my sense is that it took so long because our ordinance requires the detail that they spent on it. And we have to give some thought to...
We're not building $1 million downtown establishment.
But our ordinance requires a great level of detail, and it sounds like that's what was the source of the problem. Yes.
And it's also disturbing that apparently the people that are supposed to know what's going on aren't in the loop either.
No. Well, you know, the manager has a big operation. If people bring it to his attention, he will address it. It wasn't brought to his attention, so
this didn't reach the level. We had to call Mr. Higgins and didn't reach his level. That's disturbing to me. I'm sorry.
Well, Mr. Higgins' first recourse should have been going to the manager.
Because I shouldn't have to go to Mr. Higgins, is my point.
You're right. Thank you very much.
Mr. McNamara, Mrs. McNamara, we do apologize for any inconvenience that caused you. We are going to look at our ordinances. It will be time to update them, but as Commissioner Curley said, there is a level of specificity that's needed for the review process, but we will be taking a look at them within the next year or so. And I'm not saying that's going to simplify them at all, but we're going to try to make sure that they are readable. We'll review that application permit and see if that does anything. Again, our apologies if that took any length of time for you folks.
Still out all that money and all that time for basically nothing.
On another note, Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I just wanted to let you know that the Skunk Hollow Community Garden